The Super Bowl is just 4 days away. Of course, on one side, we have the Chiefs, who are trying to go for that three-peat, the first one in Super Bowl history. On the other side, a loaded Eagles team that feels like they might have a chip on their shoulder, something about walking through that confetti as the other team celebrates, which happened to them 2 years ago. And so, Doggy, going to you first here. Oh, by the way, Damian Woody's here now as well with us on first take. Doggy, who sees it would be a bigger failure if they lose the Super Bowl? Would it be the Chiefs or the Eagles? What do you think?
I definitely think the Eagles. Nobody's going to kill the Chiefs if they lose this game. Well, you're going to after last year they won in the overtime when they were in huge trouble. Beat the Eagles 2 years ago when they were in huge trouble. San Francisco down 20-10 fourth quarter. Their first championship in huge trouble. Nobody's going to kill the Chiefs. The three-peat thing is a little overrated anyway. Green Bay did it. We've gone through that 1,000 times in 65, 66, and 67. Two of them were in the Super Bowl. The Eagles, if they lose this game after they lost the Chiefs 2 years ago and they brought Barkley in, that's 2 and 3 years with that fan base. There'd be some hell to pay. I understand. The Eagles, everybody thinks, you talk to football people, and I'm here, I'm doing it. You talk to football people, they all think the Eagles have the better roster, top to bottom, better defensive line, better offensive line, better weapons on the wide receiver scenario, certainly the better running back. They got Fangio. There's a lot of people who think the Eagles are better, and they're only leaning to Kansas City because of the quarterback and the head coach and the defensive coordinator. I think this is a big game for the Eagles. If they lose this game, there's going to be a lot of people in Philadelphia who thought this was not a successful season. Nobody in Kansas City is going to think that. You're going to lose occasional Super Bowls. So did Brady. Nobody's going to think that in Kansas City. They will think that in Philly. Much more pressure on the Eagles, in my eyes.
Doggy. Listen, I'm so disappointed in you because you're such a historian of the game and all that. And I saw that you brought up the Green Bay Packers from before the merger. We're going to talk about things that the modern NFL, not before the merger. Listen, for me, because I point to you have an opportunity for a three-peat, something that hasn't been done in NFL history. And what I want to reference is when the Patriots lost in the Super Bowl against the Giants, the 07 Patriots, when they went undefeated in that game. And you ask Teddy Bruschi about that whole game. The fact that they lost that game, they had an opportunity to do something no other team, ever had done. They had an opportunity to go undefeated. And this is the Teddy Bruschi, a guy that's won 3 Super Bowls. But the one thing that sticks out in his mind is that loss to the New York Giants in that situation. And I think it'll be the same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. You go out here and you have an opportunity to win a three-peat, do something that no other team has been able to do, and you lose this game. I don't care how many Super Bowls that you win. Any champion that's lost in these type of games, it's always the losses that stick out to you more than the wins in Super Bowls or any championship type game. So for me, it's the Kansas City Chiefs if they lose this game to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Representative Woody, because you look represented, you look like a politician. I'm going to go with Doggy on this one. I'm going to say it's worse. It's a bigger failure for the Eagles for a couple of reasons. Number one, Patrick Mahomes has already proven what he can do. He's already one of the greatest in the world. We understand what greatness he brings to the table, what greatness Andy Reid brings to the table, what greatness Travis Kelce brings to the table. They've been depleted with injuries throughout this season, yet somehow, some way, in one-score games, they've managed to win a whole bunch of them this past season. But they've been knocking on the door of defeat for quite some time. We get all of that. And the Eagles are perceived as being the better team. The only thing that anybody says about the Eagles is that they don't have Patrick Mahomes. But everything else, you look at their defense, they're ranked number 1. You look at their offensive line, they're ranked number 1. You look at Saquon Barkley, you consider him, he would have broke the single season record if they had played him against the New York Giants in the regular season finale instead of finishing with just 2,005 yards. We look everywhere with the Philadelphia Eagles and we think collectively they're better. But here's the other thing. How many bites at the apple are you going to get if you're the Philadelphia Eagles? If you're Kansas City, you expect to be right here next year. Patrick Mahomes has been a starting quarterback for 7 years. 7 times they've been in the AFC Championship game. 5 times they're going to the Super Bowl. Okay? They won a division title each and every single year he started. He's beaten Lamar Jackson. He's beaten Josh Allen. And yes, even though he's lost to Joe Burrow, he's also beaten Joe Burrow. Who hasn't he beaten? Whereas when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, we saw them a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl. Then we saw them nosedive, primarily because they lost both coordinators. We look at them this year. There's a lot of people who believe that if the Detroit Lions hadn't suffered so many injuries, having 13 dudes on the injured reserve on the defensive side of the ball alone, the Eagles might not be here right now. We've got Jayden Daniels in Washington. Okay, we see what the Los Angeles Rams are capable of doing with Matthew Stafford. There's no guarantee. You're the Philadelphia Eagles. Nobody has guarantees. Please don't get me wrong. But Patrick Mahomes is as close to a sure thing as it gets in the National Football League. There's no sort of thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. And as a result, the opportunity is here for you. And if you miss it, it might be a long, long time before we ever see this opportunity again for them. I think that's how a lot of people are thinking. And that's why I think the answer to this particular question is the Philadelphia Eagles instead of the Kansas City Chiefs.
You know, the way that you and Doggy, are talking about the Philadelphia Eagles is like they're the clear favorites. Last time I checked, the Kansas City Chiefs are the favorite team in the Super Bowl. And you know why they're favored?
They're favored
obviously Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, okay, and Steve Spagnuolo. You talk about that trifecta. You got one of the best coaches in NFL history, Andy Reid. Steve Spagnuolo, in my opinion, is a Hall of Fame assistant. That's just been instrumental to the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, again, for me, I go back to what are the stakes here? Yes, Patrick Mahomes has won all these Super Bowls, and he's probably going to have a lot more opportunities. But you only have this one opportunity to do something that no other team in history has been able to do, and that's win 3 Super Bowls in a row. And if you go out here and lose this game, again, I'm just telling you from a player's perspective, we tend to think about those type of games, those losses, more than we do the championships that we won. So I'm just putting that out there from a player's perspective and how our psyche and our mindset as far as these games are concerned.
Yeah, I don't like the unbeaten comparison because that was a special thing. Only Miami had ever done it. I don't like that as much because that would have been something that the world would have spoken to for a long time. Half the population who follows football doesn't even know about the Packers in the 60s. So that three-peat to me is a little overrated. They brought Barkley in to win this game. They didn't bring Barkley in to get to this game. They got to the game 2 years ago with Miles Sanders as the running back. They brought Barkley to win this game. And if they lose to the Chiefs again, and especially you would think in heartbreaking, late, close fashion, those fans